Welcome back to Sunrise, where we have our eyes on the telecom sector for various reasons. One of them is the fact that the sector is a viable one, very viable one as a matter of fact. Yes. I think it is taking over from the agriculture sector.
It is. Exactly. It's one of those areas that makes a lot of money.
Exactly. Yes. So we're talking about the telecom sector, and we have a couple of holes on the road to perfection for that sector. And for us to talk about that sector, we have with us the CEO of Financial Derivatives Company Limited, Bismarck Rewane. Thanks a lot for joining us.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
First, let me ask you holistically, are we doing a great job? Since it's been said that this sector is a viable one. But if you ask subscribers generally if we're doing a great job, most likely 1 in 3 would tell you, I'm not getting the best of my subscription. What is your take on that?
Okay, well, let's step back
a little bit
and put this thing in context.
Okay.
First and foremost, the Nigerian GDP is now $510 billion, largest in Africa, 26th largest in the world. But components of this sector are 1, agriculture, 22. Then you've got oil, which is about 11.55, and then you have telecommunications, which is 8.69.
Oh, okay.
Now,
correct me on that.
but in terms of growth, before rebasing, the telecom sector was growing at 25% a year over the past 15 years. 1990, you had 400,000 lines. Now you have 110 million subscribers. So you see that astronomical leap. By 1990, there was not one base station in this country. Today, you have 25,000 base stations. On each base station, you have about 3 generators running, and you have security and security to secure the security and all of that. So the infrastructure spend has been incredible. Over $35 billion has been spent on infrastructure. Now, you have to ask yourself, the argument that telecommunication is 8.69% of the economy will stand on the fact that if you shut down the networks today, this economy can run at 92% of its capacity. But you and I know that if you shut down the networks, if the 4 operators were to shut down today, it would be equivalent of you leaving your phone at home. I'm sure that if you're in the traffic and you remember that you've left your phone at home, you go back and pick it up. You cannot do without it. So the booking reservation systems will stop, the ATMs will stop, the POS terminals will stop, the banking transfer system and all of that. So it is not just the sector itself, but the linkages with other sectors that drive productivity, technological change, and employment. This is key. Now, is the service of the best quality? Obviously not up to standard. But remember that this is a product that 15 years ago you were paying 50 naira a minute, you were paying 10,000 naira for a SIM card, and you're paying so much for. This is the only industry, or one of the industries, where the highest price is when you start, and the price has going down all the way down. So your average revenue increases, but your marginal revenue decreases. Therefore, if you were to use 50 naira a minute in whatever it is, the year 1995 or let's say 1998.
Right.
No, actually 2001. If you were to use the value of the naira in 2001 was 118 naira to $1. Today it's 160, right? So there's been about a 30-40% depreciation. Just to adjust for that, the 50 naira per minute should have been 70 naira a minute. However, the price we call today is something like 11 or 12 naira a minute. Okay? Now, having said that, the only way the service can improve is if you invest in it. To invest in it, that is to additional investment to make the networks more efficient. The base station per capita in this country is one of the lowest in the world. In fact, that if you have more base stations and more infrastructure, then the service, your calls are going to be.
Whose responsibility is that? Is it not?
It's the investors. It's not the government. All you have to do is for the investors to put more money. But people only put money into a project if they expect a return. Now, what are the challenges that the investors have? The investors are paying 160 billion naira a year as tax, and paying 50 billion naira a year as regulatory levies, paying multiple taxes and all of that.
Is that too much or too little?
No, it's significant. In fact, that these are costs that some of the costs that were not even envisaged. When you are paying multiple taxes regularly, you are paying 10 billion naira a year as diesel. In other parts of the world, the power would have been given. Now, for a $510 billion economy, you have 4,000 megawatts of power. It's the lowest in the world, 26, whatever it is per man, while in the US you have about 3,000 per person. Right? Now, to do this, to achieve this, you need to motivate the investors to put more money into the business.
Why would I put more money into a business I'm not getting as much from?
No, they're getting, no, the profitability pool is there. There's no doubt about that, they're making money. But the money you made today is for the investment of yesterday.
Okay.
The money you're going to make tomorrow is about the investment you make today.
So if you're making that much money, why am I getting poor service?
No, it is this, there is capacity. You can, if you've gone from 1 million subscribers to 110 million subscribers, the time between when the subscribers are piling on and the time to invest, there's a time lag between when you invest and when you get the returns. So, but you have to understand that there are a couple of things. There's voice, there's data, there's media, right? The data service, you don't have that much problem with the data services in terms of sending your emails, your text and all of that. The voice things, but there are also vandalism of the fiber network and all of that. So once, if you cut a fiber today, it not only affects where you've cut it, but all these stations that are, until you fix that, you have that.
Okay,
right?
you mentioned you used the word capacity.
Yes.
It's a major issue that we hear consistently across the board, not only in the telecom sector, but what kind of capacity issues do we have in the telecom sector, and what is being done to ensure that we close the gaps in these areas?
When I say capacity, the capacity is that is supply, right? And maintenance of the network so that the supply is uninterrupted. However, you have to ask yourself a question. If you have, let us say for sake of argument, you have 1,000 base stations in Lagos. Theoretically, the Lagos service should be better than if you are somewhere in Shagamu or somewhere further up, right? Now, but the cost of a base station in Kara Namoda is the same thing as the cost of a base station in Lagos. But return on the investment on a base station in Lagos is probably 10 times that of Kara Namoda. To incentivize me to put that extra base station in Kara Namoda or in Warri, or Warri is a city, you know, a forum or something, you have to give me incentives. And incentives include not just, it's not a financial incentive. You have to create an environment that enables me, that will suggest that I am not going to be penalized for expanding my network. I cannot have a base station there. A state government comes and slaps another levy. A local government comes and stops me. Then there are all sorts of things. You know, there's security
Is that what
issues.
happens at the moment?
That is what's happening at the moment.
And does it look like our government is actually serious about encouraging the investors in this sector to expand and cover the entire Nigerian?
Yes, the government is interested. The government is engaging. However, there's more that can be done. You see, you have to have a collaborative environment rather than an adversarial relationship. Therefore, what you need to do is to sit across the table and say, what is it that you need to make you invest, and set some milestones. And therefore, once these things are given, then you must hold the investors to the milestones that you must, in the next year, put 20% more base stations. You must have co-location. That is, you can share infrastructure. You can, right now we have 4 submarine cables in the country, which is submarine data. There has to be shared infrastructure, and all of these things will lead to improved service. But I want you to understand that service is not just by your calls. Service means that the productivity gains. If you take the education sector, for example, growing at, which is about 3% of total GDP, created more jobs than any other sector in this country. Over 375,000 jobs created in education. E-learning is a major, major area. E-commerce, Konga, Jumia, and all this, the growth in e-commerce and electronic trading and all that. Cashless Lagos, cashless Nigeria, all of these things. So the telecoms sector should not be looked at just as voice and data.
Yes.
But depending on the creative art industry,
they also
everything
rely.
your
Everything
industry
is, yes,
and everything.
we
So
are reliant.
when you look at the linkages between telecoms and other sectors of the economy, you're talking about almost 40% of almost direct linkages. And if you go all the way down, it's something else. So it is, to that extent, we need to actually sit down across the table with the operators and give them the incentives to make them invest. Because if they don't invest, then there's no other.
Then there's not. Okay, I wanted to, when I mentioned capacity earlier, yes. I was looking, I thought you were referring to the local expertise, because some people say that they bring in foreign expertise because we have limited expertise locally. Is this the case? And what is being done to train our own people to take on the most senior roles possible within the
last time I checked, the number of expatriates working in this sector, in spite of the technological complications in it, has reduced substantially. Less than 2 or 3% of the total workforce, and management for that matter, are expatriates. So I don't think that is the case.
Okay.
I think the risk that the investors took in the first place was to invest. They paid for their licenses. Now the licenses are due for renewal. There are certain things that the government is asking, okay, like listing on the stock exchange so that Nigerians can participate in the gains and all of that. Those are things that have been considered at a point in time. But more important is creating the collaborative environment and increasing the amount of capital formation and investment there. They've done $35 billion so far, which is huge. They can do more.
Okay, now the World Economic Forum is just around the corner. It's this coming week, and we're talking about inclusive growth, job creation. These are opportunities for Nigeria to grow and to improve. Now, let's look at the issue of foreign direct investment coming into this sector. What should the government be doing in terms of policies that will create what has become a cliche, enabling environment? What should government be doing to create that, to get more foreign direct investment?
First of all, the government is doing a lot.
Okay.
But they can do much more. What you need is its confidence. Foreign direct investment is a function of confidence. And the confidence of two sets of people, confidence of the domestic investor and confidence of the international investor. Right? And
how do we get those?
No, but it's just
or how do we create it?
There should be sanctity of contract.
Okay.
There should be availability of expertise, a pipeline of education, right? And then you should conform with best practice.
Okay, so apart from the confidence, what else would help to create that enabling environment for foreign direct investment?
Well, availability of finance, right? Ease of doing business.
How about safety, security?
Well, security. As a matter of fact, telecommunications is one of the things that will help you solve your security issue, right? Because talk about surveillance. You can find out where anybody is by whenever he has a SIM card. You can track whatever it is. However, you've raised a point. If there's no security, right, then it will be an additional cost. People will always invest if there's an opportunity, mind you. But it means that your risk premium, your insurance and all of that, even in the height of the Angolan crisis for 28 years in Cabinda, the oil companies were investing. All they did was to pay more for their security and all of that. In the Niger Delta, when there was all of this kidnapping,
who was responsible for the extra pay, the investors or the government?
No, at the end of the day, the consumer pays the price, right? Because
if I have to pay some, point exactly. It always boils down to the customers.
Yes.
But the customer,
you see, the investor didn't ask you to have a crisis in your country, right? So if you, either by act of omission or commission, end up with a crisis, then you should pay the price.
Okay, so finally, in terms of growing this industry, because it's the goose that lays the golden egg for Nigeria at the moment, and it's one that cuts across all sectors in Nigeria that makes it almost impossible for us to function. Someone was saying recently that he can't possibly imagine going out without his ATM card. And before he used to carry loads of money in a bag somewhere, but to imagine it is not possible. So finally, what is it we need to do to ensure that this goose that lays the golden egg grows and leaps and bounds?
Nurture it. Nurture it. Just nurture it. Just make sure that you nurture it. You see, if you marry your wife and you want her to have babies, well, you've got to nurture her. Okay, so that's what you do. Just nurture it.
I take it to the fattening room.
Okay.
Oh well.
Okay. All right then. Thank you.
Okay, thank you
So
very much.
yeah. So Adisha, you.
Oh, well, that's a wrap for the segment. We'll
Yes.
be speaking to the CEO of Financial Derivative Company Limited, Mr. Bismarck Rewane, keeping our eye on the telecoms industry and how we can make the most of this rapidly growing sector. We'll go on a short break now. When we return, we have more things to talk about. To join us again.